after dealing with the amount that may be capitalized, class, the next question would be, when do you start capitalizing borrowing cost? Time is very important with regard to interest, class, because interest accrues through passage of time. So it's very important for you to know when then can you start considering interest as being capitalizable and not just as an expense. So the standard provides, class, that an entity shall begin capitalizing borrowing costs as part of the cost of the qualifying asset on the commencement date. Very technical, class, you just have to remember that it will begin on the commencement date. And that makes sense, class, and that is the very reason why we call it as your commencement date. The challenge on the part of the students would be to determine when then is the commencement date. So the standard further provides that the commencement date for capitalization is the date when the entity first meets all of the following conditions. These are enumerated not in the alternative, class, but these items must exist altogether for you to start capitalizing your borrowing cost. Letter A, the entity must have started spending for the asset. It incurs expenditures for the asset. Letter B, it has incurred borrowing cost, because there will be nothing to capitalize, class, if there is no borrowing cost yet. Third, it has already started the production or construction process related to your qualifying asset. A and C go hand in hand, because if you already undertake activities that are necessary to prepare the asset for its intended use or sale, then definitely you will already be incurring expenditures for the asset. So you will just have to check, class, were you working on the asset already, and did we actually use borrowings to finance our construction? If the answer to those questions are yes, then you may commence capitalizing your borrowing cost. But again, if you're given a very straightforward question, class, when do you start capitalizing your borrowing cost? Your answer would be capitalization of borrowing cost will begin on the commencement date. Then you will be further asked, when is the commencement date? The commencement date is the date in which the entity has already incurred expenditures for the qualifying asset, incurred borrowing cost, and undertaken activities that are necessary to prepare the asset for its intended use or sale. Now, another scenario will be given to you, class. You would be asked, is it possible for you to commence or begin capitalizing borrowing cost even though no physical construction of the asset has taken place? The answer is yes, because the standard tells us, class, that activities necessary to prepare the asset for its intended use or sale encompass more than the physical construction of the asset. They include technical and administrative work prior to the commencement of physical construction. Even if there is no hard manual labor yet, class, if technical and administrative work were already performed, then an entity can consider as having started the necessary activities already. Example of this technical and administrative work, class, even includes the mere obtaining of permits, class, for the construction of your qualifying asset. So even if you were just working on paperwork, class, that may be considered as undertaking of activities necessary for the construction of the asset, and thus capitalization of borrowing costs may already commence. The standard further provides us with more specific examples, class. Always take note of the specific examples given in the standards, class, because they are normally the ones that will be asked in the exams. Borrowing costs incurred while land is under development are capitalized during the period in which activities related to the development are being undertaken. That makes sense. You have already undertaken development activities. But borrowing costs incurred while land acquired for building purposes is held without any associated development activity do not qualify for capitalization. So if the land remained idle, class, then definitely you cannot commence yet capitalizing borrowing cost. But if you have already started clearing the land, class, so that you can start with the construction of the building that will be raised in such land, then there will already be capitalization. But if the property is completely idle, then definitely no capitalization yet. After knowing when to start, class, the next question we will have to ask is, when do we stop? When do we cease capitalizing borrowing cost? The standard is very clear, class. An entity shall cease capitalizing borrowing costs when substantially all the activities necessary to prepare the qualifying asset for its intended use or sale are complete. So basically, you stop capitalizing when the asset is substantially completed. Take note, class, that the requirement of the standard is only substantial completion, not absolute completion, as long as the asset is basically ready for its intended use or sale. So a good indicator, class, that the asset is already ready for its intended use or sale is that when all physical construction of the asset were already completed, even though routine administrative work will still have to be performed, like inspections and other routine checking procedures, class. At that point, you will already have to stop capitalizing your borrowing cost. The standard further provides, class, that even though there are still minor modifications that will have to be performed to conform to the specifications of the customer or purchaser, class, you will also have to stop capitalizing borrowing cost because it is already considered that the asset is already substantially completed and already ready for its intended use or sale. So this is how you will be tested, class. When do you stop capitalizing borrowing costs? You will stop capitalizing borrowing costs when substantially all activities necessary to bring the asset to its intended use or sale are already completed. Then you will be asked, what if physical construction was already done but there are still routine administrative work that will have to be performed? Will you already stop capitalizing borrowing costs? The answer is yes. Another scenario, what if you are still undertaking minor modifications to conform to the specifications of your purchaser? Will you already stop capitalizing borrowing costs? The answer will still be yes.